Madam Clerk.
Tucker Whitman,
Here.
Ben Vitale,
Present.
Mark Farrell,
Here.
Paul Pickney,
Here.
Joseph Runkel,
Present.
Keith Batman,
Here.
Hans Petcher,
Here.
Terry Baxter,
Aye.
Joseph Bennett,
Present.
Frank Reginelli,
Here.
Patrick Mahonik,
Here.
Timothy Lattimore,
Here.
Michael Didio,
Here.
Ryan Foley,
Present.
Michael Chapman.
Here. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, to be followed by a moment of silence. Please remember those victims of terrorism. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Our sincere condolences to the family and friends of Ralph Gray, former Special Patrol Officer at the Cayuga County Courthouse, Peter S. Corning, son of Judge Peter E. Corning, David Buckingham, retired courthouse special deputy and retired Auburn police officer, and Donnie Short, former highway superintendent and general foreman.
Thank you. Proclamations.
Employee Learning Week in Cayuga County, December 7th through 11th, and this has been forwarded back.
Okay. I would mention that, you know, last year we did this employee learning recognition proclamation, and we were recognized in a national publication for our participation, so hope to see that again. Thank you. Is there any public to be heard at this meeting? Any Mr. Lattimore?
Mr. Chairman, while I ran for public office in the city of Auburn, I proposed a 4-page plan, and I just want to make sure that it goes into the minutes. I'll give it to our clerk after this, but it's a proposal, Reshore America Advantage Auburn Clean Energy Program, employment and capitalization metrics. So I will give that, and I just want it in the minutes. Instead of reading 4 pages, I'll give that up tonight since we're so busy with budgetary problems.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk.
Minutes for approval, 10/14/15, 10/21/15, and 10/27/15.
Mr. Didio, is
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to waive the reading of the minutes for those dates.
there a second? Mr. Bennett, thank you. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And now, Dr. Durant, you're on.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Just briefly, I know that there's a written report that was provided. One other initiative related to the college that we're focusing on this year is our reaccreditation process with Middle States. A steering committee on the campus was established a couple of years ago. It's every 10 years. It's a process that's very important to the college, but it's also an exercise that we can use to review our areas related to the standards of excellence from Middle States regional accreditation. So we're certainly on schedule to be reaffirmed and working through our due diligence, and we're looking to host a site team from the accrediting body later in April in the spring semester. But just wanted to make the legislature aware of that process. In addition, I'll just ask in advance and appreciate your support for an item before you this evening, coming out of Ways and Means and related to our capital funding. Really, the capital project is really ahead of, it's part of our planning process to make sure that we have capital projects in place to support some of our future growth and initiatives. The projects themselves are placeholders in our planning for our Auburn campus and enhancements. Certainly is also related to our Fulton campus, and looking, in addition, the other item is related to our technology building renovations and enhancements for academic space. The anticipation is not to come to the legislature for any local support for those items, but this would allow us to get on the schedule for consideration of the state budget so we can help move forward to identify ways to get those projects done in the coming year. So I appreciate your support in advance. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I would like to thank Dr. Dobell as well in reading the latest minutes and reports that was provided to us. It's a lot easier to follow now with your budgetary items and your footnotes, you know. It's a nice dashboard report. It's very nice and clear.
Great, thank you. I'd also like to, if I may, I want to introduce to the trustee Jane Bowen and commend her for all her work that she's done on our board for many years.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Foley?
Yes, I have a question for the doctors. This past week, we were trying to increase the college's fund. I don't know if you were aware of that.
Yep.
Legislator Uncle proposed about $100,000 increase. I wanted to kind of get your take on that, or on the college's budget situation, see maybe if you are expecting next year you could possibly be coming to the legislature to increase the county share. The reason I ask that is because I know some legislators voted against the $100,000 increase because the college hadn't asked, or,
Yep.
so I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
Well, we certainly appreciate the advocacy. From my perspective, we're in the early stages of developing next year's budget for the college. We certainly are still exploring the idea of regionalization and looking at that prospect as a way to help support our funding in our future. As I've mentioned to many of you before, regionalization, we are serving, over above 60% of our students actually come from out of Cayuga County, but which in turn I think makes us more of a regional campus. However, our commitment to be able to serve our students in Cayuga County and on our Auburn campus is where a majority of our credits are, and that's how we want to continue to make sure we evolve. Aside from regionalization, we certainly need to look at all avenues for increased funding and support. In absence of it coming from the local level here at the county, we need to look at this. We need to look at the state level. Otherwise, we're putting on the backs of our students. And at the college at Cayuga, we're looking at almost 50% of our total revenues coming on the backs of student tuition. And the more that we can mitigate that for our students, both of today and tomorrow, with other supports to subsidize, I think it's a win-win relationship. So, we're going to be looking at our stages for budget development as we go forward, and certainly probably looking for some range of increase or support. But I think all options are at the table at this point, from my perspective.
Mr. Lattimore?
Doctor, you were on the tube the other day discussing the possibility of having your master plan come out.
Yeah.
And you did mention that a lot of your enrollment is now online.
Yes. Yeah, so our facility master plan, actually, there's going to be a special board meeting at our campus on the 30th to take up the facility master plan for consideration and approval, which is a big feat in of itself. It's been going on for a number of months. The online enrollments for our courses, we are starting to see upwards about 20% of our registrations to be students from a distance. And, so our physical plant needs and our evolution of our campuses both here in Auburn and Fulton, they're critical to be modernized, but at the same time, I think our growth online, much of that growth is actually related to students who are also taking courses face-to-face. So when I've done my brief analysis, I think that it's part of that growth is really supplemental to the face-to-face experience at this point. It's not really unique students that are only online, exclusively online, but at the same time, it's reducing that barrier of travel or other issues related for students to see the growth. So the college has done a tremendous job to build up their online programs to make sure that students have lots of options that fit their lives.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much,
Okay.
Doctor.
Thank you.
Committee reports, individual legislator reports. Mr. Didio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have one report on the Watershed Inspection Committee. I want to report that you may have heard about the ditch traps last week. We installed the second. There's one right now. It's on east of going up Sucker Brook Town Hall Road, and the other is south of Dutch Hollow Bridge, with a third being planned. One big thing is that the Watershed Inspection Committee has discussed the possibilities of putting in regular press releases on the operations that we discuss on a monthly basis. So we don't feel that the information is getting out to the public. So we will be issuing a consistent press release after January. And that is all I have for today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Batman?
Yeah, I just wanted to report that we had our public meeting to get comments on the manure management plan. It was well-attended. I think there were 5 or 6 legislators who were able to make it, some representatives from the city as well as his public. We had a number of comments. The working group is in the process of taking those, incorporating them into the plan. And again, that formal plan for endorsement will be coming forward to this body within the next couple of months. And I say one more time, if anyone hasn't looked at the draft, have a look at the draft. It's not too late for comments. So if you do look, you have comments, let me or Mike Didio know. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other legislative reports? Okay, Ms. Sinclair.
Well, you have in front of you in paper my report to the legislature, and I would just add to it that I went to the same meeting that Mr. Batman refers to that night, and I enjoyed it. Nick Colas from the planning department staff did a nice job of presenting the PowerPoint description of the process and the findings, so I'd like to compliment him on that. So, other than that, I'm happy to answer questions. Oh, by the way, I find the labeling is not clear, and so especially for new legislators, this reflects the end of October, the financial piece there. So,
Any questions? I have one. What is the status of the employee forum program?
the employee forum program is kind of in a quiet mode. I have had a couple of questions, neither of which were really appropriate for publication generally, so they were not. But yeah, it's out there. It's available on the employee portal, and I like responding to them. So, you know, I hope that people will take advantage of that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have a question for Ms. Sinclair? Okay, I have a very brief report. I attended the Airport Authority meeting back in the early part of November. Just to let everybody know, next June there will be an air show coming to Hancock Field. Hasn't been an air show there in a number of years. The Navy's Blue Angels will be there. They were here this last week to kind of get the lay of the land a little bit. They'll be stopping back probably when the snow starts again, and continuing right through next summer. One thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of the meeting, at the end of this meeting this evening, we will need to have an executive session. Ms. Sinclair has some information that she needs to provide us with. Okay, any questions? If not, Madam Clerk.
Appointments and reappointments?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Didio.
yes, I move to waive the reading of the appointments
there a
and the
second?
reappointments.
Is there a second? Second. Mr. Runkel, any discussion on that? If not, all in favor of the appointments and reappointments?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Communications and announcements?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Didio.
waive the announcement, the reading of the
Is
announcements.
there a
and,
second to waive the reading of
whatever else is in
communications
there.
and announcements? Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Reginelli, any discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Moving along, regular monthly resolutions. Mr. Runkle.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to present our regular monthly resolutions 1A and 1B, which authorize payment of our bills from October 14th through November 9th. Both have been through Ways and Means and approved.
Okay, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
following along, Ways and Means has 14 resolutions for tonight. The bulk of all these resolutions are normal resolutions we pass every year to continue business within the county. We did pull WM1, so I would like to present WM2 through WM15 as a bundle, all have been through Ways and Means and approved.
Does anybody wish anything separated? I'm gonna ask that number WM 13 be separated.
Okay?
The rest remain as a bundle. Any discussion on the other resolutions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
So WM13 is fixing the day of notice of public hearing on the local law providing for salary increases for certain county officers and officials appointed or elected for a fixed term during their term.
Okay, at this time, I would move that we remove, there's two number threes. The county administrator and the county auditor. My reason behind this is that both of these are contract employees. They were hired, with a salary set, and there's been no request that I'm aware of, to renegotiate those contracts at this time. So I'd like to remove them from this list. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Whitman, Mr. Didio, any discussion? No discussion. If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Farrell and Mr. Vitale and Mr. Foley. Okay, they have been removed. Thank you very much. Health and Human Services, Mr. Mahonik.
Mr. Chairman, we have 5 resolutions. They've been through both committees. I would like to offer them as a bundle unless there are any questions pertaining to any one of those.
Anyone wish any separated? Any discussion on 1 through 5? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Didio, Government Operations.
Government Operations had 4 resolutions. GO3 was tabled. So I'll offer 1, 2, and 4 in a bundle. They've been through committee, been voted on one way or the other, and approved. Now I'll offer those up.
Okay, anybody wish anything separated? Excuse me, 1, 2, and 4. Mr. Runkle,
I'd like just to separate 4.
separate number 4. Okay,
Okay.
so any discussion on GO 1 or 2? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, GO 4.
GO4, I think, needs a motion and a second for approval.
Very good.
I'll make that motion. GO4.
Mr. Runkle moves
I'll
for
second.
December 15th to be our last legislative meeting. Mr. Foley makes the second, is that correct? Any discussion on that date? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Pinckney,
Planning has no resolutions before you. I will bring a motion in at the end of the meeting under other business.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Whitman, Public Works.
Public Works has 4 resolutions. I would like to bundle all 4 unless anyone would like one singled out.
Anyone wish any of these separated? If not, 1 through 4, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Baxter, Judicial and Public Safety.
Mr. Chairman, Judicial has 10 resolutions. 1 through 9 have been through committee and Ways and Means. I would offer them as a bundle.
Okay, anyone wish 1 through 9, any separation there? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Rating 13.
Thank you.
JP 10 was added, authorizing the county to accept the bid for demolition of the radio tower located in the village of Cato.
We voted on it.
Okay, is there a second for that? Mr. Vitale. Any discussion? I have some questions I'd like to bring forth. Mr. Westfall will be needed. There is a shed there is a chain link fence there, and there is a generator and some other sundry equipment, I'm not exactly sure. But apparently these items were not addressed in the original RFP. My suggestion would be to have the winning bidder remove those things from the site so that only a foundation is left at that location. I will make that in the form of a motion so that we could add on. Mr. Vitale, is there a second? Okay, there's a second. Any further discussion on that? Mr. Vitale?
Has that been brought up to the bidder at this point in time?
I have not without permission from this body. Mr. Lattimore?
In regards to towers, I know that there's two towers in question in the city, one down by Casey Park, not a telecommunication, but AT&T or somebody wants to put it up. We just spent $20 million on a radio system and towers. This tower is coming down because we're demoing this tower because it's not needed.
Yeah, it's been decommissioned. There's no need for it.
We can't sell it to anybody?
That's
Might be.
what's happening right now in the removal process.
Okay.
Any other, Mr. Vitale?
I guess the follow-up question is a little bit that if, per se, the winning bidder has no interest in following through with that, what would be the difficulty for maybe our own employees to get stuff out and leave just a slab there or whatever? Is it something that's possible internally? Maybe Gary could.
Go ahead, Mr. Westphal.
Presuming access, and
Okay.
presuming there are no environmental issues, then it might be able to be done locally. It might not happen in the spring. I'd want to talk to the highway superintendent, but that's possible.
Okay.
I doubt that the winning bidder is gonna have any reluctance in taking care of this stuff for us. They're going to need to, probably remove the fence in order to facilitate the use of the crane, things of that nature, and rather than destroy, the other items there, move out of the way. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Let's see, where are we at here? We have ledge 1, which was tabled. I would mention, I think we had some discussion in one of our special meetings about possible adoption of the budget this evening. And I would recommend that we reconsider that and move it to the December 15th meeting. We've got some very busy committee meetings coming up to address possible compensation changes. There's gonna be another resolution coming into play for those folks who were be starting new terms in 2016 with regard to their compensation. And I think the 15th would give us a better timing to make a decision. Mr. Didio?
I'll move to table this resolution until December 15th.
Which resolution?
The legislative one you just mentioned.
I think it's been tabled at every
right.
meeting, so.
Right. Let me do it again.
Is it formally necessary? Okay. It's not formally necessary, council is advised, so I think we will.
We can move it until January 30th.
What year? Okay, thank you. Mr. Pinckney, I think you had some other business you want to bring forward?
Yes, before I make a motion, I guess I'm gonna yield to Fred on some clarity. There's a motion in the county, a resolution in the county stating that they have passed to do away with legislative health insurance. Is that correct?
Resolution 159-13, what it provides, my understanding is it provides that effective January 1st of 16, any legislator and their family who are interested in getting health insurance have to pay 100% of the premium.
See my name on it.
Yeah,
Okay, and so is it your opinion that this is conflicting with our United Healthcare situation?
It's my opinion that it conflicts with the Affordable Care Act, yes.
And also the opinion of Judy from First Niagara
Judy
Consortium?
Toyo, yes, and Mr. Jones sent an email, and I have not had a chance to review it. And it appears to be, and again, I haven't had a chance to review it, it appears not to be disagreeing with that position. I mean, he talks about if this resolution stays, there may be some, there's a potential for some fines. That does indicate that the legislator is an employee for the purposes of the Affordable Care Act. I'm not seeing anything in here that says that he disagrees with that position.
So moving forward, are we doing disenchantment, or are we going in the right direction here? Because I'm confused then. If it's not of the opinion of 3 people to support, why are we going forward with it?
Well, I would think repealing the resolution, I'm getting ahead of where you are,
Yep.
Would clear up any misunderstandings that the federal government may have with what the intent is of the legislature. Because if it's not on the books, then there's no reason for anybody to criticize that resolution. As far as not following through and, having it on the books and having, a direction to the treasurer to permit legislators and family members to participate, by repealing it, it clears up on any potential misunderstanding, I guess is the easiest way to put it.
So to appeal it, we need a resolution or a
We-
motion?
Theoretically, you or anybody else could bring a motion subject to a second and discussion to repeal resolution 159-13.
I would like to make that motion.
Is there a second?
Right here.
Mr. Didio? Any discussion? Mr. Mahoney?
This is kind of going down the track of compensation in some direction, and we're gonna have committee meetings. I would assume that this could go through, I would assume Government Ops would be the committee that it would go through in December, and let you have time to digest the letter from Peter Jones and, have that discussion in committee, and then come back in December and make that final decision.
The letter is only 4 paragraphs. I could have an answer either by committee or in 20 minutes, whatever the body.
I mean, we're going through committee on everything else, so why wouldn't we just put it off to go throughout Government Ops and just be consistent?
That would be up to the body.
Mr. Pickney?
I guess the only reason I'm asking about it is there's a time sensitive. Sheila, when are the payments due for the legislators going off? Is it in mid-December
For,
to start, if they're gonna accept 100% of their, go ahead.
well, the resolution states that it's effective January 1st, 2016.
But they would have to start paying prior to January 1st, correct?
Yeah, that would be the insurance question for the treasurer's office. I don't know when they pull it out.
Fred, you had information
I
on
did,
that?
I checked with the treasurer's office, and the premiums for January are due in December, which is next month. So whether that creates any heartburn for anybody, I don't know. If the premiums are, say, paid 100% in December for January, and the legislature decides to repeal the resolution in December, what I would expect is that there would be a refund coming from the treasurer's office probably in January or thereafter. But that just involves the individuals, the legislators that are participating, paying 100% of the premium in December, seeing where the resolution ends up, and then, squaring the deck, so to speak, next year.
Mr. Mahoney?
I would offer a motion to table and have it go through committee.
There's a motion to table. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennett seconds. Any discussion? Mr. Baxter?
My discussion is actually on the previous motion. I don't believe, and I'm not a lawyer, of course, but the law, the Obamacare law says that the people have to be offered the medical insurance. It doesn't say anything about what percentage they have to pay of it, I don't think. And that's where I think that's really what we're discussing, is not that isn't available, but going from paying 10% to go to pay 100% just to be in the program. That's what I think we're actually discussing, is that
Mr. Westfall?
My understanding is the insurance has to be available on the same terms and conditions. And what this resolution does is change the terms and conditions by requiring that the legislators and their family pay 100% of the premium, whereas other full-time employees for the county only have to pay a employee share. So
Okay.
that's what causes the friction as well.
Mr. Jones has indicated that they did not find in their research any differentiation or special circumstance for elected persons. So I was going to ask that question of Mr. Westfall. He's offered his opinion in the previous conversation here. Your understanding of the Affordable Care Act is that it be offered.
On the same terms and conditions, yes.
I would go back to Mr. Jones and have that, or please provide us with a version of the Affordable Care Act that states that. And I don't expect you to do that right now, Fred, but if we could have that going forward. We have a motion and a second to table. All in favor of tabling at this time?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have 2 opposed. Mr. Vitale, no, now we got 4. Mr. Vitale, Mr. Batman, Mr. Pinckney, Mr. Lattimore. Okay. Mr. Vitale.
Chairman, in front of the legislators, there's a large spreadsheet, and I spent some time looking over the pay scales for the non-bargaining unit employees, and I've been considering what our plan is for going to each separate committee and doing some of this work. And I thought a little bit differently, that if each committee is gonna review all the people in their, under their departments, that it'll be done a little bit differently in every committee. And so I would like us to come up with a plan on doing that a little bit differently after January 1st. But what you have in front of, what the legislators have in front of them tonight is something that I would like to move forward on. And it would be effective January 1st, 2016. And basically what I did is I took the minimum salary for each grade of the county employees, and the people that were actually below the minimum grade, I determined what the difference was, and I took 40% of that. So what I would be recommending is on the last column of that spreadsheet, 40% of the difference between the minimum grade and their current salary. And if you take all them, the total is $69,788. And we have what I believe is around $90,000 worth of savings through our retirement system this year. Our payments are going to be going down just a little bit. And
Quite a
so-
bit more than that. It's 590.
Okay. So anyhow, my thinking is if we do this before the end of the year, it takes effect January 1st, it would give us time in the first early months of 2016 to take an appropriate look at all these positions, all of the grade placements, all of the step placements, because I continue to disagree with the whole grid as it's done presently. But as a basis, I would look to using the grade placements that we have on these sheets to at least get a start toward reconciling some of the differences that we have here. The resolution that I would like to put forward is we go forward with the 40%, which is the last column on the spreadsheet. I will tell you, just in case, if somebody wanted to raise that to 50%, the number would be $87,235. I would support either one, but to start with, I would like to make a motion to, as of January 1st, 2016, do the pay increases that are on the last column of this spreadsheet, and I can make it available for anybody who might not have it at this time.
Is there a second? Mr. Batman seconds. Any discussion? Man, if I could first, I wasn't clear. Are you starting with what people have at their current salary?
The current salary, yes.
Okay. And you realize that in 2015, many of these folks would receive the 1.5, in 2016, 1.75, which would then bring that current salary up to another level.
For response, Mr. Chairman, that's particularly why I'm not recommending more than 40 or 50%, because I think the 40 or 50% gives us enough leeway that once the other salary increases come into effect, and in early 2016 we can see all those numbers specifically, it still gives us enough leeway to make adjustments that should be appropriate at that time.
Okay, I guess the only other thing I would want to say for clarification, I don't have a problem with your motion, with your resolution there that you'd like to put forth. As long as we keep in mind going forward, this is only a guide, because as you mentioned, it's arguable that there's a number of people here that are in the wrong step, grade, whatever you want to call it, and a number of people who already are at that position
I
of
would
salary.
totally agree with you, and I think I mentioned that in my discussion, and that definitely needs to be reviewed in early 2016.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Whitman first.
I might be having a hard time with the whole grid thing to start with. Maybe I'm forgetting from last week what we discussed previously, but I guess I'm confused of what we agree on and what we don't agree on. From Ben's proposal, I'm guessing we kind of agree on the grid, but not even on the first step. I'm having a hard time just throwing money at employees to maybe make them happy while we try and figure something out. I would rather figure it out and get a process and do what we're gonna do instead of how do we know 40% isn't more than what we're gonna agree on for the first step in some of these, or who goes to that first step, or I guess I'm having a hard time figuring out what we don't agree on. I mean, I would rather do something orderly and intelligently, or at least appear that way sometimes. You know, for the employees to look at this body as we're just throwing some money out there because we really don't know what to do. I don't think it makes us look good. I don't think it makes us look responsible with taxpayer dollars. I don't have a solution either, so that's still the problem.
Mr. Baxter?
Yes, I do disagree with Mr. Whitman on this. I think we've been intelligently putting this off for quite a while, and it's time to actually do something. We're not throwing money, we're just trying to get somewhere in the ballpark of where we need to be. And as you can see by this graph, this chart, some people are already over what is necessary to do, some people are way under. I would offer an amendment to go to the 50%. I believe that would be quite a lot fairer, and there's other things that we've been trying to do that would be easier to do with that 50%.
Is there a second? Mr. Pinckney? Any discussion on this amendment? Mr. Farrell?
Discussion on the amendment and the whole thing. I agree with Mr. Vitale in the concept, and this might very well be where we end up, but I also agree with Mike Russell's opening statement when he presented this, that our employees are our most valuable asset. And if so, then I think they deserve the fact that the legislators would show up to the committee meetings in December and give this the attention that it needs. I don't agree with the complete list, and that's why I don't want to see a summation like this put together and have it go to 40 or 50% without the conversations taking place.
Okay, Mr. Lattimore? Mr. Lattimore.
I
Mr. Lattimore, do you have something?
Yes, sir. I do. I just want to call on our clerk, who's, I know that we pulled it at Government Ops. I just want to make sure that we are getting closer to our department heads have a disparity with, in regards to how much the scope of work that they do, and the number of employees under them. Is this 50% going to be closer? I don't know whether our department heads have looked at it and said it's going to be okay.
Ms. Marinelli, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that if we're looking at that right-hand column, the first right-hand column, that is after there's already been the raises of 1.5 and 1.75. It would be additional on top of that. Just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Mr. Pinkney?
I guess I would support what Terry Baxter had said. However, I feel, if we're gonna do this thoroughly, should have been started a long time ago. And I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with how long it's gonna take us to get to where we need to go here. So if we're not gonna move swiftly, and not gonna set dates like we have in the past and not made those dates and those commitments, then I would move forward with the 50% and get us going in a direction. But we still need to get to committee to decipher which is which. But at least this would get us in a movement form, which we've seemed to lack in the last 6 months on this deal.
Mr. Mahonik?
Kind of agree and disagree with what Paul said. I think that we have done a lot of work. I think Mike's done a lot of work in trying to get just this information together. To get 15 people to agree to this is a pretty tall order. So I think making the motion to go to 50% is appropriate. It still gives us that room to go back through committee, and I would encourage that we continue to have that discussion in December, as was suggested, and hammer this out. But we need to make some kind of movement on this. It's been kicking around since May, June. And we had a special meeting to discuss it, and it didn't seem very fruitful. So this seems like a step in the right direction, to kind of put our money where our mouth is, and then go on and re-examine any of those, the existing questions that will still be out there about the grid and the
Mr.
placement.
Runkle?
I'm in agreement with Mark. I mean, there's been a lot of work done on this, and I think for 15 people to decide on a particular position is much harder than the 5 or 6 people in the committee. So I think it should be done in committee, and I say it should be done in December, and put it all, get it over with.
Mr. Batman?
The problem with doing at this point in committee is that what we're doing here, I think Mr. Vitale's proposal is not to look at individual positions in the context of the committee, but rather to look at those positions in the context of the organization, and that's what he attempts to do. So this isn't a review of positions based upon what individual legislators know about the person who does that work, or how that comes later. What we're saying here is that there are certain positions that are way, and this is what Mr. Baxter said, that are way underpaid. Other positions are not too bad. By going the 40-50%, all we're doing is we're just still, it doesn't eliminate the review at all. But what it does is says, okay, we're gonna make some movement right now, because we know these people are off. How much off, we actually don't know, but we know they're off. And we're leaving some slack here so that we don't do something really in error. So we can do both, is my point. But we really, if we do something today, then we've begun to narrow that gap. And then we can look as specifically as we want to in committee, or wait till next year to do a more thorough evaluation. But as others have said, I think this shows some movement, it shows some good intent, and it provides some immediate relief.
Mr. Mahonik?
Just a point of caution, I would say, is that the discussion in committee should not be about individual department heads. It should be about the position. That comes further down the road through the evaluation process. So to say that we're going to go through and look at everybody's performance and dole out raises based on that, I think is foolish. We just need to look at the job description, the duties, the amount of people they're supervising, and look at the position, not the individual. This is not an evaluation tool. This is getting people where they should be.
Anyone else? If not, all in favor of Mr. Baxter's amendment to utilize 50%? Any opposed? Mr.
You want a
Whitman,
roll
Mr.
call vote?
Runkle, Mr. Farrell, and Mr. Petcher.
Okay, say again. Runkle, Petcher,
Okay,
I didn't get them all. Runkle, Petcher, who's opposed?
Mr. Whitman?
Whitman. Farrell,
Mm-hmm.
that's 4. Anybody else?
I think we had 4 up there. Okay, the amendment passes. Mr. Farrell, do you have something else?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. Mr.
I may have missed something on resolution Ways and Means 13. Was just the amendment voted on, or was the resolution? as
That's a
amended
great
voted on?
question. Let me see if I put an X here by the,
I may have missed that.
Just the amendment. was voted on.
Yeah,
there
just
you
the
go.
amendment.
Yep,
Yep.
I don't have the whole thing next up, so let's go back to WM 13. The amendment passed. Anybody else have anything to discuss on WM 13? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much, Mr. Westfall. Any other regular business at this time, or additional? Mr. Batman?
Was the vote we just had on the,
As amended.
that was just the amendment to go to 40-50%, or did that approve the motion?
That passed.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
so
now we should approve the motion.
Don't we have to vote on the motion itself?
As amended.
We got a little interrupted. We'll
Yeah.
get to that right now, sir. Thank you very
Wait, I'm
much.
aware.
Okay, we're back to Mr. Vitale's original amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Whitman? Okay. Any other legislator? Mr. Whitman?
If I may, I'd like to propose a cut to the budget.
Okay,
I'm gonna look to our legal counsel to pull me back over the line if I go over it, to try and avoid an executive session. I'm interested in cutting a position out of the budget. It would save the county $126,301. The county survived many years without it. It's a relatively new position in this county, and I do not think this county needs it to run. We have other people that can fill in. We've done without the position in between people being in it. I don't see it as a necessity, and it would be a great savings. The line items, the full-time salary is $95,000. That's A12301-51001. The others are the Social Security for $6,983, retirement for $15,865, the health insurance for $5,256, the dental for $395, and the workers' comp for $2,802.
is there a second? Mr. Didio? Thank you. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Ladmore?
I believe that the legislator's not going to fund it. I don't think he wants it, the position removed, just the funding of the position. Is that correct?
I will refer to Fred as to whether or not that is the same thing.
What sounds like you're asking that a particular position in the budget related to that line item be abolished.
Yes.
Yes. So that would do away with position subject to any, say, contractual rights that may exist related to that position.
But by law, we can't do away with the position. We can not fund it, but
Well, you're getting to the point where you're just about to ask for legal advice, and if you want to go forward, I would
No, I don't.
suggest.
no, thank you.
Mr. Foley?
At this point in time, I think it's prudent that we may go into executive session.
The
So
motion?
I'll make a motion to go into.
There's a
executive
second
session.
for Mr. Mahunik. All in favor of executive session? What is the purpose, Mr. Foley?
To discuss the specific,
The employment of a particular person?
right.
Sir, sir,
Mr. Westfall, is that okay?
That's the correct title.
That is correct.
sir,
You win.
isn't this a motion to do away with the position? I think that needs to be discussed in open session. Or maybe I
We
misunderstood.
have been, but Mr. Foley feels we are very close to a line here, and he would like to go into executive session.
To adequately address Mr. Lattimore's question, I think you're gonna be looking for legal advice on potential contract matters as well as employment matters. But it's up to the body whether they go in or not.
Any further discussion? Moving into executive session.
That's my fault.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Mr. Batman, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Whitman, and Mr. Vitale, and Mr. Lattimore. We will be in executive session, 7:25. I don't believe we're gonna do any regular business after this, because we're gonna have to go into another executive session.
I would request that the elected, the recently elected legislators join us.
Batman, Bennett,
We've
Whitman,
discussed this
Vitale.
previously, they are not sworn members of the body.
Excuse me,
and
sir, I was invited to every single executive session when I was elected before I took office.
Mr. Batman, I'm not arguing with you, I'm going by what legal counsel has provided previously to us.
The chair is free to invite anyone into an executive session. Isn't that true, or am I mistaken on that, sir?
It's usually related to the topic, but the chairman is right. They are not sworn members of the legislature, so there are potentially confidential issues that would be discussed.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. I just had no interest in participating. I find this offensive and I would participate.
I don't know.
Okay, since I was